And this week, it's Hyundai's Kona Hybrid. Now, I'm not gonna lie, when I first saw this, I wasn't in love with the looks. It looked a little bit Gumby with its horizon line at the front and its kind of slightly chunky side. Just looked a little bit awkward. The swept up bit at the roof reminded me a little bit of a Kia, and the horizon line at the back, it just looked a little bit out of place considering the taillights are down below. When you open this up, there is a spare wheel inside. I mean, it's a space saver, but there's a spare wheel nonetheless. And a reasonably capacious boot. Now that's something that you don't get in many new cars. In fact, a lot of new cars don't have a spare tyre at all. It's all those inflation kits, which, as you know, don't work. We've done the electric version of Kona, so I'm not going to go into the inside too deeply. But there are two models. There's the base model, which is this one, and the premium, and you can pay a little bit more again and get the premium with a sunroof. The rear space is ample. The luggage space, as you've seen, is plenty. And they've cheaped out a little bit on the dash. For example, only this middle bit's digital. The other two are just some clever graphics. There's a nice wide screen for the infotainment system, and it's all made to look one piece so that this wide screen looks like it fits in with the driver's screen. There's some vents down below, audio controls below that, air conditioning controls below that, and it includes a sync button, which I like. There's two zones here, one for each of the front passengers, some USBs, a Qi charger and 12-volt outlet, and the drive mode selector along with the button that marks clearly where the camera can be found. The steering wheel is straightforward. It's got automated steering, which we like a lot. You press that button and on comes the steering for cruise control and lane control. There's the distance to the car in front. And over on the other side are the controls for audio and phone. And even the buttons for mirror, windows and door locks are backlit. And of course there's the full suite of safety and driver aids. We'll get into that when we are out on the road. Finally, it would be remiss of me not to mention this clever little hideaway cup holder, which turns into a nice big center console. There's a center console bin and a tray. You can't see it, but just here there's a little thing that's sticking up out of the steering column. If you can see it, it's going to have little red flashing lights because that's looking at my eyes to make sure my eyes are on the road. I'll move the steering wheel around and you can see this big square paddle that comes out of the side of the steering column. It's got drive, neutral and park. Park is a button on the end. The rest of it is this whole silver bit turns. So now I'm in drive, just like the electric cars. Drive modes include snow, eco and sport. You can have several different graphics up on the center, and I'm just going to scroll along. And since refueling, this is down to 4.9 litres per 100 kilometres. Since last reset, and I don't know when that was, it's 4.8 litres per 100 kilometres. I can get all that information just by scrolling through the wheel. If I leave it there, it shows me where the power's flowing. This is a front-wheel drive car, so the motor or the engine or both is driving the front wheels. Okay, we're in drive. Let's just see how we go. It's released the handbrake. That's a promising start. The engine has started, or the motor has started, I should say, and it's propelling me forward, and I can see that I'm being driven from the battery, which is about half full. Actually just went down a knob. It's a little bit noisy on this road. Handling on these things is always good. Hyundai have begun to adopt a world tuning regime rather than doing something local in Australia. Same with Genesis. Kia still does all of their own local tuning, so for suspension and steering and all of that sort of stuff, it's local, which is rather strange. Hang on, let's indicate. So now, one thing you'll have noticed is that there was a change in engine note, like a transmission. That's because this does have a transmission. Unlike many hybrid cars, this has got a 6-speed proper automatic. The other thing, of course, I'm going to take that out of sport now. Now I'm getting dinged and bonged because the speed limit here is 70, and the Hyundai group still has this annoying overspeed warning that some of their cars have gotten rid of, that you can silence it, but you've got to do that every time you get into the car. In the meanwhile, as a workaround, you program the shortcut button on the steering wheel, and then that takes you to that menu where you can press off and turn the sign recognition system off. That's your only option. I mean, really? The steering is on, now the car is steering itself. This is a really clever system, and it will work. Go up to 80 now. I can see here on my center screen what speed the cruise control set at. Of course, I've got lane control, cruise control, active blind spot monitor. If I try and change lanes, it'll get cranky with me. But I think the main thing that Kona Hybrid has in its favor is that it actually does what it says on the box. So many hybrids that we've driven promise below 5 litres per 100 kilometres, but they don't deliver it. Okay, now we're going to get back into territory where a hybrid will feel most at home. Around town, and funnily enough, almost all hybrids will give you better fuel consumption around town. While it's on the highway, the system is going to really go out of its way to work up extra in the battery, and as you're cruising down hills, you'll regenerate the battery even further. These paddles do exactly that. They select the amount of regeneration that you want. On the highway, for example, you might want to cruise a little further. But when you're in city, and I'm just going to use the left-hand paddle, and now that's, I can see here on the dash, has got me on level 3, which is the strongest level of regeneration that's possible. So we'll move along to something else. We'll move along to the file system. This includes DAB radio, Apple CarPlay, a calendar, and your settings. And it is very quick to respond. Now for a change, we used a car just for what it was designed for. So in other words, this is just city, apart from that little stint on the freeway just then, which was only to get from one exit to another. We've done shopping, we've dropped a couple of friends at the airport, just the things that you would do, and the petrol tank is still full. So although it was saying range was 600 and whatever it was before, we've done 100 or 200 kilometers this week, and the needle's hardly moved. And I can see over here that the battery is full. At the moment, the petrol engine is not running. Strangely enough, there isn't an EV only mode. In most cars, you can select that separately. So, to wind up, I like this because it has a proper automatic transmission and feels most of the time like a normal car to drive. It can spend short amounts of time in EV only mode, and the fuel consumption for our trip anyway, long term, was about 4.8 litres per 100 kilometres. I think the official claim is about 3.7. At under $40,000 on the road, this is a bargain because it's packed full of stuff. The sound system is acceptable. It's not fabulous, but it's certainly better than nothing. That's all this week from Hyundai's Kona Hybrid. I like this car a lot, and I think it's a really good value with extraordinarily good fuel consumption. But as always, hit like, leave a comment, and the little round thing to subscribe.